Do you remember the time when one of your friends pinched you? I am sure you reacted to it by pulling away suddenly. Similar is the case when someone tickles you or you touch some hot object. If you think more deeply, you'll realize that all these movements are controlled and they are in response to some external trigger or stimulus. So, in this video, we'll see how these movements are controlled and coordinated in animals. The control and coordination in all the animals is done by the nervous system. Nervous system consists of a network of neurons or nerve cells. Some of these nerve cells have specialized tips which detect the external factor. These specialized tips are called sensory receptors. All the sensory receptors are present in the sense organs. Some of the sensory receptors are photoreceptors, phonoreceptors, olfactory receptors, gustatory receptors, thermoreceptors. The sensory receptors present in the tongue are called gustatory receptors. These receptors detect taste. Because of these receptors, we can say that the food is sweet or salty. Similarly, sensory receptors present in our nose are called olfactory receptors, and these receptors detect smell. Have you ever tried eating food by blocking your nose? This is weird, right? Just try eating food like this, and you will observe that olfactory and gustatory receptors are required together to satisfy your palate. Now let's have a look at the structure of neurons. The neuron consists of cell body, dendrites, and the axon. Cell body is this spherical part of the neuron which contains the nucleus. Dendrites are the branches of the neuron which receives the signal from the other cells. The axon is the longest dendrite present in the neuron and it transmits the signal to the other cells. Now let's see how these nerve cells or neurons function. The main function of these nerve cells is to receive, conduct, and transmit the signals. The dendrites of the nerve cells receive the signal and sets off a chemical reaction. This chemical reaction creates an electrical impulse. The impulse is then transmitted from these dendrites to the cell body and then to the axon. From the axon, this signal is transmitted to the dendrites of the other neuron. The junction between the axon of the first neuron and the dendrites of the second neuron is known as synapse. At the end of the axon of the first neuron, the electrical impulse sets off a chemical reaction. These chemicals generated by this reaction cross the synapse and generate the electrical impulses again in the dendrite of the next neuron. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, that the impulse from all these nerve cells is transmitted to the cells of the sensory organs like some muscle cells or to some glands. Here we can see how the axons are transmitting the information to the muscle cells. This quick movement of my hand away from the flames is called reflex or reflex action. So we can define reflex action as an involuntary instantaneous movement in response to the external stimulus. When I put my hand over the flame, the signals from my hand are taken up by the neurons and are transmitted to the spinal cord. These signals are detected by the spinal cord and then the spinal cord prepares the response which is transmitted back from the spinal cord to my hand and which makes me remove my hand from the flame. Neurons that carry the signals from all the parts of the body are known as sensory neurons, while the neurons that carry the signals from the brain to all the parts of the body are called motor neurons. So, now you know that the reflex responses are very quick. But it would take much longer if the information goes the whole way from the sensory organs to the brain. So, the responses to these reflex actions are given up by the spinal cord. This shortened nerve pathway or the connection between the sensory nerve and the motor nerve that controls the reflex action is known as reflex arc. The nervous system consists of many nerve cells or neurons. A nerve cell is made up of a cell body, dendrites, and an axon. The involuntary instantaneous movements in response to some external stimuli are known as reflex actions. We hope that you have understood the concept of animal nervous system. Now, here's a secret on how you can study effectively with the EduRev app. You can learn with chapter notes, watch video lectures, and solve NCERT-based MCQ tests of this chapter on EduRev. And that's not all, you also get amazing courses for Class 10 and much more for your Class 10 preparation. Thank you.